Bienvenidos al club. Aquí estamos un día más y esta vez, bueno, tenéis que perdonar la voz porque ahora mismo cuando estoy grabando esto son las 7:30 de la mañana y ha sido una noche larga de NBA. Pero bueno, os prometí que os traería doblada la entrevista de Sam Smith, así que hoy aquí la tenéis. Sam Smith, autor de The Jordan Rules, con la entrevista doblada al castellano. Ya sabéis que la semana pasada tuvimos la suerte de charlar con esta leyenda de la NBA. Hablamos un poquito de todo, mucho de Michael Jordan. Y hoy aquí os la traemos doblada al castellano. Aquí comienza otra vez el capítulo 534 de NBAdictos. Así que ya sabéis, vamos a escuchar la entrevista doblada, la entrevista que pudimos tener el otro día, el pasado lunes 24 de abril, con el gran Sam Smith. Os dejo con ella. Un saludo. So now we turn to the English so we can speak with Sam. Sam, I don't know if you are listening to our Cinto, our music. I don't know if you remember or recognize something that is said over the song. ¿Recuerdas o reconoces algo de lo que dice la canción?
Well, I like the way you dance.
Bueno, me gusta
we
cómo
don't see a
bailas.
lot of dancing in American media
americanos,
for good reason.
Es una buena sintonía.
So that's a nice addition.
Yes, is that
Sí,
last
es ese
shot
último
of
tiro de
Michael Jordan con la camiseta de los Bulls? You know a little one thing or two about Michael Jordan, about the Chicago Bulls.
Well, it's true. I started a lot of life is being in the right place at the right time.
Es verdad, empecé mucho en esta vida es estar en el lugar correcto en el momento adecuado. Creo que es mejor tener suerte que ser bueno. Los Bulls draftearon a otro escolta, llevaban unos años haciéndolo. Reggie Theus, algunos fueron buenos. Reggie fue All-Star un par de veces. Quentin Daly no fue tan bueno y algo otro. Y draftearon a este otro escolta, Michael Jordan.
All-Stars, Quentin Daly, not so good. Had some others, and then they drafted this another shooting guard, Michael Jordan, and averaged 17 points in college, even though
he
was the best player on the 84 US Olympic team. That won a gold medal,
metió el tiro que le dio el
championship shot to win a collegiate championship in 1982.
Manager de los Bulls,
but I remember being at that draft and the Bulls general manager, Rod Thorne, saying, well, you know, he's a really good player, but it's not like he's going to turn around the whole franchise. So nobody knew. And as it happened, literally the first week he was in Chicago, Chicago Tribune then. I worked for Chicago Tribune for about 30 years. I'm currently right on the Bulls website, bulls.com. But the newspaper sent me over, went over to his house. Jordan was living in what we call a condominium.
Jordan vivía en lo que aquí llamamos condominio.
3-bedroom, I think, sort of attached apartment.
Estilo de lo que
kind of more what you'd see in Europe than the United States.
Estuve con el novato todo el día hablando con él.
And he said, well, why don't you sit around with the rookie for a day? Talk to him, find out, you know, write another one of those rookie comes to Chicago sort of stories. So pretty much from the ground floor to beginning, I happened to be in the right place at the right time and interviewing Michael Jordan his first week in Chicago. So, as we say here,
como decimos aquí, la historia se creó después de eso.
It was history created after that. But none of us really had any idea. We thought, hey, this is a really good player. Bulls have a chance to maybe start to create something. But 6 championships and dynasty, nobody saw that coming.
It's easy to talk backwards and look to 1984 and say
pero en aquel momento no era así.
the Blazers
Michael Jordan, que
missed
llegaba
that
a la
shot,
universidad,
but
no era el mismo jugador que
at the
luego
moment it's
vimos,
not the
y
same.
explicaste y contaste muy
The
bien
Michael
toda esa
Jordan that
historia mientras
came
cubrías a los
from
Bulls.
college
Y el
was
cambio
not
llegó
the
en
same player we
1991,
saw.
con ese primer anillo, y también vino con este libro. Te comenté por email que es el primer libro
explain
que
and
leí en inglés sin
you
ser
tell
por
all
deberes del
that
colegio.
story. Meanwhile, you were covering the Bulls, and that change came in 1991. It completed with that first ring, and it also came with this book. I told you by mail that this is the first book that I read in English, non-related to the school.
Well, thank you for
I
that.
really
I hope
espero que las malas palabras no te
bad
molestaran
words
o te
didn't
causaran
upset you or
problemas.
get you in trouble.
No. There is no upset on the bad words
No hay
in this
molestias ni
program,
problemas con
or
las
in me.
palabras
There
en
is
este
enough
programa. Puedes
censorship.
decir esta cosa.
You can curse if you want.
Yeah, well, as it happened, I'd been traveling with the Bulls, what you call the beat writer. I don't know how it actually works
No, yo
in
viajaba con
Europe,
los Bulls como
but
beat writer. No sé cómo lo
I was
llaman.
the writer for the
Escribía en
Chicago
el Chicago Tribune
Tribune
sobre los Bulls,
and
trabajaba
signed
con ellos a
basically
todos los
to write about
partidos,
the Bulls. So I
en Chicago,
traveled
pero
with
también a los
them
de fuera.
to all the games. I was at the home games, obviously, in Chicago, but went with them to all the road games. And back then, they didn't have a private aircraft like they do now. Didn't
En aquel
stay in
momento
luxury
no viajaban
hotels
ni los
like they do
jugadores como
now.
ahora, no se quedaban en hoteles de lujo como ahora.
There was a much
Una
more
relación
intimate
así,
relationship and
más
access, and so
ahora hay muchas normas
and
en el
also
vestuario.
there's a
Ahora
lot
los
of rules
vestuarios se
now
abren media hora
with the
antes de los
locker rooms,
partidos,
like the
puedes
locker
entrar,
room
pero los
before the
jugadores no
game
están porque están en otra
opens
sala de
for about
preparación.
30 minutes, and
Hay muchas
come
ahora
in
en
and
los
talk to the
pabellones.
players, but they're usually not there because there's a separate trainers room. Is like suites now in the arenas. It wasn't that way then. It was one room where the players changed and got taped, and we had access to
Entonces
it in
no
the
era así.
media for
Había una
hours before
habitación
it.
donde los
I'd
jugadores se
get there. The
cambiaban,
game would start at
blindados.
7,
Podíamos estar ahí
7:30
durante
actually back
horas.
then.
Los partidos empezaban
I'd
a las
get there
7 o
3,
7:30,
4
por aquel
o'clock.
entonces.
Jordan would be
Yo
there,
llegaba a
and
las
you'd
3 o a
sit
las
talking
4,
to him for
Jordan
hours,
estaba allí y
literally
podíamos
3 or
hablar
4
durante
hours
horas.
before the game.
Literalmente 3 o 4
He
horas
didn't like
antes
to
del
shoot
partido.
before the game. He would occasionally in the morning they'd have shoot around. He might go to that. I mean,
No
would
le
go to
gustaba
that.
tirar antes del partido. Tenía sesión
But he
de
didn't
tiro por
like
la
to do
mañana
much
y eso sí
shooting
lo hacía, pero
practice
no le
before the
gustaba demasiado
game.
practicar su
And
tiro antes
crowds
de los
would
partidos mientras el público llegaba. Pero sí le
get
gustaba
together.
charlar con los medios. Era un gran
But he
comunicador,
liked to
un
give
gran
and take with media. He
conversador.
liked
Un tío amistoso con todo el mundo, un
communicating,
tipo
great
majo.
communicator, great talker, friendly, personable, nice guy. Fun to be around, kind of what I would describe kind of man's man. You know, it's everything when you're around together is a competition. Who's going to be the next person through the door? I'll bet you on it.
¿Quién va a ser el primero
So
que
it's
entre
a lot
por
of
la
that kind of
puerta?
stuff.
Apuesta.
And so I was traveling with the team, and we all flew commercial aircraft together. I was on the
Sí que
planes with
viajaba
them.
con el equipo,
I was in the
todos en vuelos
hotels with them. I
especiales.
rode on a
Estaba
team
en los
bus.
vuelos
So
con
as a
ellos,
result,
estaba en
you
los
were able
aviones
to
con ellos,
develop
iba en el autobús del equipo.
intimate
Desarrollaba
relationship and
relaciones
intimate
cercanas,
knowledge
conocimiento
of
del
the
equipo y
team
de los
and
jugadores.
the players. You
Formabas parte
become
de la familia que
part of the
viajaba. Yo era
traveling
parte de eso.
family, which I did. And so I had done that for several years, and then I mean, maybe I was naive about it, but I never expected that the book would be a
Lo hice
sensation.
durante varios años.
I was
Fui muy
shocked
inocente por
when
aquel
it
entonces,
was.
pero nunca pensé que el libro fuera así.
I've been before I
Así
got
fue
into
cuando lo fue.
sports. I
Antes de
was a
entrar en el
news
deporte, yo
writer. I was
escribía
an
noticias y era
investigative
reportero de
reporter
investigación en
in
Washington,
Washington,
D.C.,
D.C.,
la capital. Trabajaba en
our
periódicos de
capital in the United
investigación,
States, and
políticos,
so
congresistas,
had
senadores.
worked on
Así que el
investigative
deporte
projects
no es
and
que no me lo tomara en
with
serio, solo que no
congressmen,
pensaba que fuera
senators,
tan
political
importante. Era
figures,
pasarlo bien
and so
con los
sports. I
partidos y la
didn't
gente se
really.
apasionaba en la
I didn't.
batalla. Yo
It's
entendía
not that I
esto.
didn't take it seriously. I just didn't think it was that important. It was sort of fun and games, and people were passionate about it. I understood that, and people are always asking me, what is really like? What's it like to be with the team? What's Jordan really like? So I thought,
Y la gente siempre me
write a book.
preguntaba, ¿cómo
I've
era
never written
estar
a book
fuera del
before.
equipo? ¿Cómo era Jordan de verdad?
My first
Yo
book.
pensé en escribir un
And I
libro.
thought, well,
Nunca había escrito
I'll
un
just
libro,
write kind of a
ni por el
diary
mío. Simplemente escribí una
of a
especie de
season, what it's
diario
like
de
to
la
go through
temporada
a
acerca
team
de cómo es
with a
estar
season.
cerca de
And
un
as it
equipo
happened, the
durante una
season I
temporada.
picked,
Solo que la temporada que elegí
arbitrarily,
acabó siendo por
was the
casualidad la
season they end
temporada
up
que acabaron
winning.
ganando.
And there was things that went on behind the scenes that
Y hubo
I
cosas que pasaron
think
entre
because they
bastidores,
won and because they
debido a que
became
ganaron,
famous, and
debido a que se hicieron famosos, cosas que
there
pasaron.
were other circumstances developed. As you know, if you're reading the Jordan rules, I didn't really write about these gambling scandals. They came about
Como sabrás, al
after the
haber
book was
leído
published,
Jordan Rules, yo
but
no escribí
it
acerca
kind
del
of got
escándalo de las
merged with
apuestas.
it.
Salió a la luz después
The
de que el libro
story sort
fuera
of came out
publicado.
of Jordan's
Pero casi
gambling,
se
and the book came
fusionaron,
out,
salieron las
and
informaciones
it
de las
became a
apuestas de
big
Jordan,
controversial
salió el libro
sensation. And
y
I'm
se
like,
originó una gran controversia.
wow, what's going
Yo me
on?
preguntaba, ¿qué está
I
pasando? Estaba
was really
impresionado por lo que
shocked
pasaba.
about what had
Como te
occurred.
decía,
And
quizás era un poco
like I
inocente.
said, maybe
A
I was a
veces,
little
cuando estás metido en
naive.
un tema,
And
no eres
sometimes when
consciente del
you're
impacto que tiene en la
inside, when you're
gente que está
intimately
fuera de ese
involved
entorno en
with
el
a
que estás.
subject,
Yo estaba con el
you don't
equipo mientras
realize
transcurría
the
la
impact
temporada y
it's having on
francamente
people
ellos solo
outside
esperaban
of where
llegar a las
you are in
finales,
your
no se
little
consideraban un equipo
orbit.
campeón.
And
En ese
I'm
momento
just
pensaban,
involved
si
with the
podemos ganar
team,
a
and
los
they're going through
Pistons,
the season. And
probablemente no estemos listos para
frankly,
ganar el título.
they're just hoping to get to the finals. They really didn't consider themselves a championship team at the time. They thought, well, if we could get past the Pistons, we're probably not ready to win a title. And
Y
then
entonces Portland, que
Portland,
era
who
el
was the
favorito,
favorite,
fue
gets
sorprendido por
upset
los Lakers de
by the
Magic
Lakers and
Johnson y les
Magic
derrotaron en las
Johnson in the
finales de
conference
conferencia oeste.
finals, Western
Así
Conference
que los Bulls
finals.
se enfrentaban a
And
los
the
Lakers
Bulls
en las
get into the
finales, lo que era
finals
un
against the
mejor
Lakers,
emparejamiento
and it's a
para
better
ellos.
matchup
Los Lakers eran un
against
equipo
the
más
Lakers,
viejo
who are kind
y
of
les
an older
ganaron de una
team,
manera
and they win the
espectacular en
title,
5 partidos. Y mi
in
libro salió
spectacular
apoyado
fashion,
por eso
5
incluso.
games. And my book sort of just comes on the heels of that.
We have to remember that these Bulls came
Tenemos que
from
recordar que estos Bulls venían de perder varias
several
veces contra esos
times
Pistons con
losing
las
to the
famosas
Pistons.
Jordan Rules.
Right.
Decías antes que hay que
famous
estar en el
Jordan
lugar
rules.
adecuado en el momento preciso, pero
And
también hay que tener
you said
talento.
before that you
Y
have
si me
to be
permites,
in the
el
right
valor para
spot
contar esa
at
esa
the right
verdad
time,
desnuda que
but
hay en este
you also
libro.
need to have
¿Cómo fue
talent,
recibido por los
and
jugadores y la franquicia?
if I may, the
The
guts
guts
to tell that naked truth that is in this book. How it was received from the players and the organization?
Well, it was very controversial in the media. Actually, the play it was received. Jordan didn't like it, and I understand. And I don't know for sure, but I've always believed he never read it.
Hubo
But
mucha
I
polémica.
knew what he didn't like,
A
and I
Jordan no le
understood that
gustó y lo entiendo.
is the
No estoy
depiction
seguro,
of it,
pero
that he
siempre he
was
creído que no llegó a
depicted
leerlo. Pero
as
sabía que no le había gustado.
mean
Lo entendía.
spirited and
Era por cómo era
tough on
descrito.
his
Era
teammates, and
descrito como mezquino, duro
made
con sus
fun of him,
compañeros, burlándose de
wouldn't let
ellos.
Horace Grant eat on the
No dejó que
plane
Horace
coming
Grant
back from
comiera
a
en el avión
playoff
tras un
game, so
partido porque no
they
había
didn't
jugado
play
lo
well enough,
suficientemente
and
bien.
got in
Se
a
peleó
fight
con
with Will Perdue and called him
y le llamó
Will
Will Vanderbilt
Vanderbilt
porque
because
fue a Vanderbilt y decía que Perdue era
he went
mejor
to
que
Vanderbilt,
Vanderbilt.
and he said
Yo
Purdue
estoy
is a
seguro de
Big
que
Ten, they're
tanto
better
tú
than
como la mayoría
Vanderbilt.
de tus
Yeah,
seguidores
and
habréis visto The Last Dance.
what
Mucha
happened, I'm
gente
sure
me
you
pregunta
saw
por ello.
and
Lo que
many of your
realmente me
viewers saw the
gustó,
Last
aunque
Dance
sea un poco egoísta,
documentary,
es que
and
Jordan por fin aceptó quién era.
people ask me about that. What I really liked about it, and maybe it was a little selfish, is that Jordan finally sort of copped to who he was. He was always worried about his image in the sense that, and I
Siempre estaba
remember,
preocupado por su
before the
imagen.
book came
Recuerdo
out, I
hablar
had
con él de muchas
talked with
cosas
him,
cuando salió el libro y me dijo que una de las cosas por
conversationally
las que
about a
tenía
lot of
miedo
things, and he
era que la
once
gente se
told me that
enfadara, que dejara de
one of the
gustarle
things
y
he
perder su
feared
simpatía y su
was
patrocinio. Creo
people
que eso
getting
era lo que
angry with
pensaba que
him,
iba a
not
ocurrir
liking
con el
him, and
libro.
him losing,
Que si
all
se le
his
describía de una
public
manera negativa,
acclaim and endorsements. And I think that's what he thought would occur with the Jordan rules, that he was depicted in a negative light, even though if you read the whole
aunque si
book,
lees el libro, yo no lo pretendí
I
así.
didn't
No
mean
creo
it
que
that
sea
way.
descrito así.
I didn't
Creo
feel
que
it
es
was
una
portrayed that
perspectiva
way. I
con días
just
buenos,
felt it
días
was a
malos,
perspective
pero lo
on,
que sentí
good
mientras lo
day,
escribía es que había una razón para estar
days,
así,
some
porque
bad
estaba
days,
rodeado de
but more.
jugadores jóvenes, muchos inmaduros,
And
y a él se le pedía
actually,
más.
I did
Había
see
más
at that time
expectativas puestas
when I was
sobre él que
writing
sobre
it,
los
as
demás.
this was
Él
him.
competía con Larry
There
Bird
was
y
a
sus
reason
títulos,
for
con
him
Magic Johnson
behaving
y sus
this way,
títulos,
because
con
these were
Isaiah
young
Thomas y sus
players, a lot of
títulos.
immature players, and he was in more demanding and expectation position than they were. He was competing against Larry Bird in his titles, and Magic Johnson in his titles, and Isaiah Thomas in his titles. And he had to win. Horace Grant didn't have to win, and Scottie Pippen didn't have to win, and John Paxson. So the pressure was on him. So he was doing these things to kind of drag them along, to sort of push them to mature quicker and to get into position to potentially be a winner and be a champion. Things they didn't know. Horace Grant had never won anything, and Pippen never won anything. You know, and these guys, you know, weren't expected to. So when the Last Dance came out, I thought he kind of finally copped to that and said, yeah, you know, I did this and I acted that way, and it's true because I had to do it, and I saw it that way at the time.
Y yo lo veía
así the way the book was
pero la manera en la que fue descrito en el libro, no sé más allá, pero
American media, I don't know beyond that, but in American media was Jordan's a bad guy, Jordan's a jerk, you know, this kind of stuff. And so I understood he didn't like that, and I understood he wouldn't. But the other players, well, for one thing, that's where all the information came. I mean, I make it up. You know, it came from all the players, and most of the players are quoted by name in the book. This wasn't anonymous sources. You know, and so a lot of the players felt, you know, he was a little over the top at times, bullying, and so they were glad to tell me their stories, and they encouraged me to write. They wanted me to write it. It was interesting. They told me they didn't want me to write it in the newspaper because then they would have to answer it for the season. When I said I was going to do a book, they said, yeah, that's a long-term thing. You know, and they were fine being quoted in the book. They didn't want to be quoted in the newspaper because then they'd have to come to practice the next day and answer for it. So, and I still have good relations with most of those. I just talked to DJ Armstrong yesterday. Bill Cartwright, I was talking to about a week ago. John Paxson, I see still around the Bulls. Randy Brown's around the Bulls. Tony Kukoc. So I see a lot of them still have good relationships with them. And,
todo lo que iba bien,
you know, even at the time, there was no hard feelings about it because they were kind of glad, you know, sort of no offense to Jordan, but, you know, everything that went right was at the time was credited to Jordan. Everything went wrong was blamed on them. So they kind of liked it, you know, in a kind of perverse way that, hey, finally Jordan's getting some criticism instead of us. So.
I can tell you that when I read the libro, I wasn't aware of all the controversy of the US media, and it didn't seem to me that it was so harsh on Jordan. For me, it's a way of explaining how he achieved
tenemos una leyenda de
so great.
NBA, que es Gonzalo Vázquez.
They need that.
Él solía vivir allí. Y me ha dicho que te vio un par de veces, pero
you are a legend of US journalism.
Here in Spain, we have a legend of NBA journalism, Gonzalo Vázquez, que te quedas admirando.
He used to be in the US. He told me that he saw you a couple of times, but you impressed him so much that he didn't talk with you. He looked at you as you looked, or that rare birds that you look at them and admire.
Well, he should have talked to me because usually I have nobody to talk to.
Debió de haberme hablado porque normalmente no tengo
It's too bad you weren't covering, you know, you weren't writing about the Jordan rules at the time because you had, and that was the perspective I meant.
Es una pena que no estuvieras
I liked Jordan,
hablando de
Jordan rules. I admired him, and I thought
esa era la
what he was doing.
Que pretendía
and I understood
Jordan, le admiraba,
why he was doing a lot of what he was doing, and a lot of it was humorous. Sometimes if you,
algunas veces,
and I know, you know, people complain
aquí se queja mucho la gente de que las cosas se sacan de contexto. Si sacas las cosas de contexto y escribes algo sin su trasfondo, puede sonar diferente.
Take things out of context if you just write something without the background to it, it can often sound different, and that's kind of what happened. And there was probably some jealousy. You know, I was getting a lot of attention, and a lot of credit for a project, and you know, who was I? There were more senior writers, writers who have been around the NBA longer than I had.
Es la naturaleza humana.
So, you know, human nature, I understood that. But like I said, I had worked in
Pero como te dije, había
government
trabajado en el
politics,
gobierno, en
Washington
política
D.C.
en Washington DC
journalism,
como
and
periodista,
investigative
periodismo de
reporting, and
investigación.
so
Así que
had done
había
things
hecho cosas
before
antes que
that
habían
were
sido
controversial,
controvertidas
and
y lo llevé bien, ¿eh? Mi familia
so
tuvo más
it
problemas
was
con el
okay
día
with
con
me.
él.
My
Que hubo
family had
amenazas,
more trouble
cosas
dealing with
desagradables.
it with me,
Eso fue antes de las redes
because there were
sociales. Hubiera
threats
sido peor en
and
esta
silly
época.
stuff, and this was obviously pre-social media. It would have been obviously worse in this era. But as you said, as you saw it, I intended it that way. I intended it to be, as I was saying, people always say, "What's it really like in the locker room? What's the wizard like? What's it like behind the curtain?"
Y yo me
And
sentía
so I just
como
felt,
todo periodista debe
as
sentirse. Yo
any
era el
journalist
mensajero,
should
yo
be,
estaba
I was
abriendo
just
las
being a
cortinas para que la
conduit.
gente
I was
pudiera
just
mirar y
opening
les
the
decía,
curtain
así
and letting
como
people
es,
look in
así es
and
como
say,
es, la vida
"This is what
real.
it's like,"
No es ni bueno ni
and
malo,
that's
es el
real
día a
life.
día.
And it's not bad. It's not good. It's just everyday thing. And basically, they're good guys, decent people, and
Básicamente son buenos tíos.
but the main thing
Lo
is
importante es que tienes que
you need
valorarlos.
to appreciate them
Por eso
for
los
their
ves y los
talent, and
valoras.
that's why you're watching them, and appreciate them for what they
No es
do.
perfecta y no eres feliz,
And
a no ser que seas de
just
Finlandia.
like your life is
Igual de
not
feliz.
perfect, and you're not
Algunos días estás
happy.
enfadado, algunos
We're all
días
not
estás
from
triste,
Finland.
algunos
I
días
guess
te
that's a
diviertes y
happy
así
place.
es cuando cubres
Um,
un equipo.
so
Y yo pensaba que
some
estaba haciendo
days you're
bien.
angry, and some days you're sad, and some days you're having fun, and whatever. And so this is what it's like being around the team. And so I thought I was just doing a service.
Mm-hmm. And how it was your relationship with Michael Jordan afterwards, after the book? Because you were the first,
digamos, personalidad sádica,
point his,
manera de presionarse a sí
let's
mismo
say,
y a sus
sadistic
compañeros.
personality, that
Cambió tu
way
relación.
of pressuring himself and his teammates. It changed. It changed your relationship with Michael.
Yes. Yeah, we had I wasn't one of his close friends, but as I explained, because I'd been around the team and traveling with the team, and I was part of the group, and so I'd had dinners with him sometimes, and in the road, sometimes he'd have friends stay with him, but when his friends weren't around, he didn't like to be alone. He never liked to be by himself. And so myself and another writer from the Sun-Times, Lacey Banks, he would invite us up to his room sometimes, just sit around, play cards or something, just have company. And so I had a very friendly, casual relationship with him. I didn't hang around with him away from basketball home.
Y creo que parte del motivo por el que nos llevábamos tan bien era porque yo no lo veía
and I think that's why we got along so well, because I was kind of, I didn't view him as so special, and I found that with people who are great accomplished.
Las personas con éxito valoran
they appreciate being treated, most of them,
y no ser puestas
being treated like everybody else, as opposed to being put up on a pedestal and worship. And Jordan liked to give and take back and forth, so you could kid around with him, make fun of him. When you have a bad game, I would always point it out. I would say, geez, I would never have missed that many shots. And he liked the challenge, the give and take all the time. And so, but once the book came out and the depiction of him was sort of, in a lot of respects, negative, and he was mean, I stopped that kind of familial relationship. He would have anyway, I'm sure. But to his credit, and I always credit him,
la gente de los medios necesitaba tener acceso a Jordan y tenerle contento.
He treated me professionally all the time. He could have,
ahí sigo.
The rest of the media and the public wanted to side with Jordan.
Hago bromas, Jordan se fue y yo sigo haciendo lo mismo.
You weren't gaining anything by defending me, but media people, still needed the access, wanted to have Jordan's goodwill toward them. So it helped some, frankly, to condemn me, be critical of me. And so, but I'm still there. I'm covering the team. I'm around the team, and I still am. And it's sort of, I sort of joke about it. Jordan's kind of moved on. I'm still doing the same thing. So,
¿Cuánto éxito he podido tener? Pero puede decir en las ruedas de prensa, en todos los encuentros con los medios, pero principalmente en las ruedas de prensa en el vestuario, me hacía una pregunta, me respondía como a cualquier otra persona. Y eso es muy raro. Y lo ves ahora, con jugadores como Russell Westbrook, especialmente Kevin Durant a veces,
he would answer it just as he would answer anybody else. And that's pretty rare. And you see it now with players like Russell Westbrook, especially Durant sometimes, Kyrie Irving all the time. That they have an issue with someone, they're nasty. And Michael Jordan, he could have easily either not answered my questions, tried to help me up to ridicule,
pero él mostró su carácter,
any number of things.
Y es lo que
but he showed the character, and that's also what I tried to depict in the book.
Duro,
that,
y el carácter
this was a guy of high character.
Me trató bien, pese a que estaba cabreado conmigo porque no le había gustado como lo había retratado. Pero él no iba a permitir que eso le impidiera ser un profesional.
And so I think the character showed up in that he treated me despite he was mad about it. He didn't like the depiction of it. But that said, he wasn't going to let that get in the way of him being a professional. So I did always appreciate that, and I respected.
Y siempre valoré eso y lo respeté. Cuando volvió, ellos ganaron los títulos en el 92 y en el 93, y cuando volvió, estaba mucho más relajado. Le hice algunas entrevistas, un par de entrevistas individuales. La última vez que le vi fue hace unos años, probablemente antes de la pandemia, en Charlotte. Era dueño de los Charlotte Hornets, los Bulls jugaban allí, y él quería ver a algunos miembros de los Bulls que aún conocía. Y hablamos, y me dijo, veo que te ha venido el enemigo, trabajas para el equipo ahora. Y charlamos, bromeamos. Para Michael Jordan yo estoy con una pelusa en el hombro. Él es multimillonario y yo sigo cubriendo el equipo. Me mandó un mensaje diciéndome gracias por aparecer. Así que creo que estamos bien ahora, aunque no vamos a pasar.
I joke, for Michael Jordan, I'm kind of lint on the shoulder. Like a billionaire, and I'm still covering the team. So whatever, and I will say, with The Last Dance, he did send a message, thank me for appearing. So I think we're okay now, but we're not hanging out together.
You mentioned The Last Dance. I really appreciate what you said when that show was aired, because I love the show. I Johnson turning 43 today.
Con esos Lakers,
so I grew up with that team.
Esa serie estaba producida.
I grew up with Magic Johnson.
Muchas cosas estaban tratadas desde su punto de vista.
But that show
valoré mucho que en ese momento
by Michael Jordan, so a lot of things
decía qué gran serie.
Point of view, I really appreciate that in the moment that it was.
Esto es un show.
Tenéis que buscar la otra versión de algunas cosas. What a great show! You said a couple of things, saying, "Okay, this is a show. You have to take, and you have to learn the other view and all the things." I really appreciate that.
Yeah, we kind of joke around a lot of times. Movies that are on TV have a disclaimer with them in the United States. They say based on a true story.
Sí, lo vemos muchas veces.
So I kind of joked about that. I said, it's kind of based on a true story.
Real. Así que bueno, con eso dije que estaba basado en una historia real. Y entiendo que algunas de las cosas las haces con intenciones dramáticas. Por ejemplo, la historia de la pizza que supuestamente le intoxicó en Utah durante esas finales. No fue así. Nadie le trajo una pizza mal estado. Tenía mal de altura. Pero eso no suena tan bien como ser intoxicado por una pizza.
But that doesn't sound as good as being poisoned by the pizza. Americans like conspiracies anyway. And also, the Bulls really didn't break up the team. He broke up
Además,
the team.
Los Bulls
He
no
could have come
rompieron
back
el
and
equipo.
played.
Él rompió el equipo. Podría haber vuelto y
Phil
jugado.
Jackson was
Phil
going
Jackson
to
se iba,
leave, but
pero su asistente principal aún estaba
his
allí.
number one
Le dejaron
assistant
claro a Michael que si había
was
otro
still
entrenador
there.
que quisiera, le
Made
contrataría.
clear to Michael
Dijeron a
that
todo el mundo en ese
if
equipo que les
there was another
ofrecerían un
coach he
contrato de
wanted,
la
they would
duración
hire
por
somebody
la que
else.
Michael firmara. Pero él
They
había
told them
terminado
everybody
una temporada
else
muy
on
difícil, la
the team,
97-98.
they'd offer a
Como en la
contract
92-93 estaba
extension
completamente agotado.
for as long as
Necesitaba
he wanted
el lockout estaba en
his
camino.
contract.
Y algo que no
But
mencionó fue el
he was
accidente
done.
con el
That was a
cortador
really
de pelos.
difficult season, 97, 98. Like in 92, 93, he was really worn out. He needed to get away. Lockout was coming. And also what he left out was that he had this cigar cutter accident.
Yeah, that injury in the finger. En el dedo.
And he couldn't have played. He couldn't do it here. He couldn't grip a basketball. So it would have been difficult to shoot that season.
No podía doblar el dedo, no
so
podía
he kind of left that out too.
Había tenido dificultades con el tiro.
But it sounded better to say they broke it up.
Pero es que sonaba mejor decir que ellos rompieron el equipo. Podríamos haber seguido, la dinastía podría haber continuado. No, él había terminado. Él lo entendió y hay que reconocérselo. Para él no competir y por eso luego volvió con Washington.
It was difficult for him
to
not compete.
Este último tiro en Utah, ganando el campeonato, anotando el tiro ganador y luego yéndose hacia el atardecer. Pero nadie lo deja en un punto tan alto.
Farewell. That pose of the last shot in Utah, winning the championship, making the game-winning shot, and then walking away into the sunset. But nobody does. Nobody ever leaves on that high. Tom Brady, a quarterback in our football.
Conoces a Tom Brady, quarterback de fútbol americano. Estuvo cerca, pero siguió jugando hasta mediados de los 40. LeBron todavía juega. Hasta los 40 probablemente jugará unos años más. Así que aunque sea casi una imagen mítica que nos gusta crearnos del héroe, la puesta del sol, la última victoria, nunca sucede de ese modo.
With the last victory, it never happens that way. And so
but they also earned that right. Han ganado ese derecho. No sé si if you follow motorcycling. I'm a huge fan of Valentino Rossi, the greatest of también se retiró con 41.
He also retires with 41.
Y algunos decían que se tenía que haber retirado 5 años antes.
Some people said,
yo creo que se ganan ese derecho. Cuando eres el mayor, el mejor, en tu trabajo, te ganas el derecho de irte a casa cuando quieras.
Your job. You earn the right of going home whenever you want. Absolutely. And I'm a personal example of that because people come to me all the time when I'm around and say, why aren't you retiring? Why are you still working? Well, because I like to, and I enjoy it, and I feel like I'm still good at it. And I'm a great believer in as long as you could do something and as long as they'll let you do it, that you should keep doing it. And I tell players that. When players are coming, not that I'm an advisor necessarily to a lot of players, but I always tell them,
hasta que no te lo permitan más,
until they don't let you anymore,
tienes que seguir haciéndolo.
Es algo que disfrutas.
El dinero es fabuloso. Nunca volverás a estar en esa posición de nuevo. Si lo dejas, te arrepentirás. Es amigo mío. Lo dejó con 32, estaba lesionado, pero podría haber seguido jugando, volver, recuperarse y jugar.
He left at 32. He could have continued to play at an injury, but he could have continued to play, come back and rehab. And he regrets it to this day. He regrets leaving so early and prematurely in his career. But at the time, people were saying, well, it's time to go. You had your run and you're on the downhill now.
Si lo haces bien y lo disfrutas, debes
so I'm a big advocate of as long as you do something, you do it well and you enjoy it, you should keep doing it because society is quick to be done with you as soon as they can.
Sam, the last one, I told you half an hour and
la última, media hora y hemos pasado.
Hay muchas
a lot of
things that I would like to talk with you. Como has dicho, sigue siendo a legend. As you said, you are still good at
¿Cómo es cubrir este equipo hoy en día? Los jugadores de ahora, los jugadores de antes, la diferencia a lo largo de estos años.
¿Cómo es tu día a día? Covering this team nowadays, the players from now, the players from then, the difference all through these years, and how is your day-to-day job?
Well, as I explained about the circumstances then, and nobody could write a Jordan Lewis now. And not because there's not talented writers. There's always going to be talented writers. There's always going to be someone comes along who does what you do better than you do. But the access has disappeared.
There's
no more access. And also the players have really essentially become corporations. They call it what, my brand and all that kind of stuff. but there's so much independence of the
Los jugadores
players that you don't have
no tienes esa
sort of the
camaradería
team
de
camaraderie
hagan
anymore.
lo suyo,
They're
tienen su
kind of
propio
off on their
staff,
own. They have
agentes, masajistas,
their own
cocineros.
staffs,
Todos los jugadores
agents,
tienen sus propios
masseuses,
cocineros, es increíble.
whatever they do, cooks. All the players have their own cooks. It's unbelievable. You know, but the average salary in the NBA, the average salary is $10 million.
Es de $10 millones.
And
Se
so,
despiertan,
you know,
están en la NBA
everybody,
millonarios.
you
Sea
just
lo que
wake
sea,
up and you're in the NBA and you're a millionaire.
mil
And
millonario.
so,
Pero
whatever
sigue
that
siendo
means.
baloncesto
Now
y
it's
puedo seguir
billionaire. You gotta
viviendo
be.
sobre la parte de baloncesto.
So,
Y lo disfruto.
you know, but it's still basketball. I mean, I can still write about the basketball element, and I enjoy that. I enjoyed the games, and the way I always look at it, every game and every
Disfruto los partidos.
season is
La
really a
manera en la que
story.
veo cada
Every
partido de
game
cada
is a
temporada es
story.
como una
You
historia.
know,
Ya sabes,
who
quién
is the
es el héroe,
hero,
quién es el villano, quién
who's the
fracasa, quién tiene
villain,
éxito.
who
Y
fails,
una
who
temporada es como una
succeeds,
narración continua de la historia de
a
esta
season
familia.
is
Cómo
sort of
se
an
llegan, cómo
ongoing
se
narrative
relacionan, cómo tienen
of the
éxito, cómo
story of this
fracasan, cómo
family,
se
how they get
atrasan.
along, how they
Así que
relate,
cada
how they
temporada es como un nuevo
succeed, how
libro,
they
empezar
fail,
una
whatever
nueva
the case
página
might be.
rellenando el
So,
papel en blanco
you know,
según va
each year
transcurriendo.
is really, you know, kind of the way I look at it, you know, kind of a new book. You know, flip open a new page and fill in the blanks as it goes along. Players,
Los jugadores me parecen muy maduros, conocen
you know,
los
I find the
medios, es
players,
fácil
you
llevarse
know,
bien con
very
ellos,
mature,
algunas
very
excepciones,
media
raras
savvy.
excepciones. Hay
Good to get
tantos
along with.
jugadores con los que es
The
fácil tratar que
exceptions,
aquellos con los que no, simplemente
very
no
rare
son buenos.
exceptions, you
La
know,
principal
players,
diferencia es
and
que
there's
ya
so
no
many
puedes
players
crear
that are good to
relaciones.
deal with.
Ahora ya,
That, you know,
ya no lo
the
intento,
few that
porque
are
soy
not,
como
you
el
just
abuelo.
kind of
Pero las
ignore.
relaciones que tuve cuando era joven y viajaba con el equipo
And
hace 30,
so
40 años eran más
the
personales.
main difference
Pero
is
ya
you
no
just
puedes crear
can't
esas
create
relaciones porque,
relationships.
como
Now
te
I don't
decía, ya no
try
tienes
anymore
acceso.
because, you know, I'm like that grandfather. So, you know, but the relationships I had when I was younger and traveling with the team 30, 40 years ago, you know, were more personal, but you can't create those anymore because, you know, as I was saying, you
Los
don't have
vestuarios
access
ya
to
no
them.
están
Locker
abiertos
rooms
durante
are
mucho tiempo. E
not
incluso cuando
really
están abiertos,
open
los
very
jugadores no
long.
están
Even when
allí,
they
están
are,
en
the
otras
players
salas.
aren't in there. They're in
Cuando
separate
viajan lo hacen
rooms,
vuelos
trainers'
privados.
rooms on the
Como te dije
road.
antes, yo
You
viajaba
know,
con
they're
ellos en vuelos
traveling
especiales,
privately.
United
Like I said, I
Airlines,
traveled
American
with them
Airlines,
on
la que fuera.
commercial, you know,
Nos quedábamos en hoteles
United Airlines,
relativamente
American
modestos.
Airlines,
Ahora
whatever the
solo se
case
quedan
might
en el Four
be.
Seasons
We
o en el
stayed
Ritz.
in, you
Los
know,
medios no se
relatively
pueden
modest
permitir esos
hotels. Now
hoteles
they
de
only
500
stay
o
in
600
Four
dólares la
Seasons
noche.
or Ritz.
Y es por eso, por lo que
There's
ya no puedes tener
there's no
detalles
lesser
privados como los
hotel,
que pude contar en The
and
Jordan Rules,
most
porque
of
ya
the
no
media
tienes el
can't afford to
acceso para
stay in
estar
hotels
alrededor
like
de esa
that. I mean,
gente.
they're spending
Muchos cooperan,
$500
pero
a
no
night
existe
for
la
their room,
oportunidad.
600
En
or
mi
whatever
caso,
it is.
el juego
So,
sigue siendo juego, me sigue
and
gustando,
that's
pero es el
why
mismo juego.
you
Hay
don't
más
really
tiros de
have
tres, lo que no
intimate
me gusta. Corren
details
arriba y
like I
abajo
was
tirando
able to
desde la
tell in the
línea de
Jordan
tres
rules
53
because
veces por
you just
partido.
don't have the
No
access
es
to
mi
be
idea de
around these
baloncesto,
people.
pero sigue siendo el mismo
A lot of people
elemento, todavía lo
cooperate,
disfruto y sigo
you know,
agradecido de
but there's
tener la
just
oportunidad
not
de
the
hacerlo.
opportunity. And so, you know, so in my case, you know, I'm still able to, the game is still the game. It's not the same game. It's more three-point shooting, which I don't like. And, you know, they run up and down to the arc and shoot a three and run back. You know, 53 is the game is not my idea of basketball, but it's still the same elements. So, you know, I'm still enjoying it and still pleased to have the opportunity to do that.
I'm pleased of having the opportunity of reading you in bulls.com, reading your books, and having the pleasure of talking to you. Sam, you're a legend. We can use that word. It's a
Well,
huge honor.
all the nice things you say.
Agradezco tus palabras,
we can do
todas las
this
cosas
another
bonitas
time.
que has dicho y quizás podríamos, whenever you want, I take your word and
Cuando quieras, te tomo
I
la
will
palabra
call
y
you
te llamaré de
again,
nuevo.
Sam.
Sam, muchas
Thank
gracias.
you very much.
All right, thank you. Have a good evening.
Gracias a ti, buenas noches. Ahí teníais la charla con Sam Smith que tuvimos la semana pasada, el lunes 24, como os dije. Os prometí que os la traería doblada, aquí la habéis tenido. Espero que os haya gustado, espero que hayáis disfrutado. Volvemos la semana que viene, volvemos con el análisis, ya sabéis, de todo lo que está sucediendo en los playoffs de la NBA. Un saludo.